Okay.
We are recording.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, May 12th Education Working Group session. And I wanted to thank Thomas Laub again last week for the presentation on the Scala Zio environment. I went to the YouTube link you provided for Pavel's presentation at Lambda on Scala and monads. So, you know, it's those types of presentations and informations. You know, with your presentation helped me kind of get oriented around the Zio environment, and then with Pavel's presentation, it helped move me along further. So it's kind of a journey. Getting set up, becoming a Scala developer. So let's see here. Hey, Nutzupper, welcome. Hey, Raphael.
Hey.
Okay, so I carried over the items that were on the agenda from last week. You know, it's kind of the agenda for today is kind of based on who attends and what our interests are. I can propose some topics that we've have mentioned in the past, but it's up to us to kind of decide what direction we want to go. So I'll just kind of point out the topics that we've discussed, and then as a group we can kind of decide or see. So we had prepare to create 10-minute videos on video debug for IntelliJ. Talk about the code in RChain project, RChain, that's Will. Or another one that should be on there is more discussion on Scala development. So I don't have anything prepared specifically for today, so I'll kind of open it up to the floor as far as what everyone's interests are, or what, if anyone has any thoughts, or if they're prepared for anything today.
Yeah, thanks,
I think Thomas Laub also had created a, in response to Arthur's suggestion, Thomas Laub created a spec on something that perhaps Thomas Laub wanted to discuss, I think.
I also call Will and Nadzipper to join and say also a few words about, what we are doing and what problems we have. And maybe this is like also interesting to say.
Okay. Well, actually, why don't we start off with that? You know, as far as what are the core dev team's challenges, and then maybe we could segue or migrate into Arthur's spec that he's creating on RChain. So with the since the core dev team's here, so feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Nadzipper, do you have something prepared? Or I mean, now we have, everything is somehow related, right? So Arthur asked for a proposal on HTTP. Okay. And this is definitely useful, and not only propose, we need much more control for Arnold, right? For this admin interface. But we don't have a special server. We have only one port. So we cannot propose, which should be only available for node operator, right, internally. So I will show a ticket with description what needs to be done. I'm not sure if Arthur can just jump in on that, but maybe we can organize some kind of help, and this can be like a task to do. It's not super complicated, but it has like few pieces that needs to be like managed.
Yeah, and then others besides Arthur also may be able to participate in that task and then get that to completion relatively quickly. I'm looking at you, Jim Whitescover.
Sorry, I wasn't really here. I'm working on something else. Sorry, go ahead.
You're trying to be recruited, Jim, for your development expertise.
I'm retired.
You're retired. Okay.
No, I mean, I'll give lots of advice. I love giving advice.
Give advice.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll tell you where it started is that, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to work on the UI for my contract, and, you know, I was moving along by, you know, getting auctions and starting auctions, but then I needed to propose bids, and I needed propose, and
Can you?
I was using the toolkit, and it was great, but then all of a sudden propose it didn't work. You need gRPC, and if you need gRPC, you need Envoy, and it just started to unravel. And I was kind of
I don't understand why you say you need Envoy. Maybe Thomas Love could explain that for me. I mean,
on the browser.
Certainly, we can do everything with his interface without having Envoy, right? Thomas?
So on HTTP we don't have propose because on HTTP we only have a public port, so we cannot expose directly propose. So in this ticket I specified how to create another HTTP server on different port, and then we can call this like admin interface, and we can put additional methods that we need.
Thomas Law, I said, I'm wondering, why don't you screen share that ticket, and then we can maybe improve and complete that spec in case there are gaps on that. As people talk through it, or as people point out gaps, we can fill that out.
Can you tell me why we can't propose with HTTP? I mean, isn't that the same? I mean, isn't that a very simple operation?
Yes, but we have only one HTTP server with one port, and this port is public. So we cannot protect propose in any way, right? Because
well, sure.
I mean, if it's on the same port, it's difficult to. We can do the same thing as we have on the gRPC. We can just create another server on different port, and you know this port can be accessed only locally.
I see. I mean, you're saying if we let anybody propose, you know, I'm missing something here. I mean, we can certainly restrict where the IP addresses that we accept a propose from. Okay, that's we can specify that as an argument, or whatever. You're trying to do beyond that.
So as you said, it's difficult if this is on the same port, right? We can do some kind of authentication and different things, but much easier is to just create another server and have a different port. So I created this ticket with explanation what needs to be done. So we have web API. And this is the interface. Sorry, is it big enough? So this is our web API interface. So we need the same definition for web admin API, right? Where we can put propose on or all the other methods that we want. Another thing is to create. Yes.
Okay, so this is just creating another HTTP server,
yes.
or another HTTP address for this purpose. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now I thought you were on a separate server, which didn't make sense. It is like a separate server, but it's all in our node.
Yes, all in our node. Yeah. Just another binding that another listener for different port, and I'm thinking that we should have like almost the same interface for gRPC and HTTP, and just that it's easier to manage and
Now, wouldn't you still need to sign them or do some kind of authentication, or just insert? I'm still missing how this.
So let me show.
You know,
Here is the creation of HTTP binding. So where the server is bind to some port. So we can just create another server which has routing for our internal port or this admin API.
Right. So I think Tomislav, Jim, and I'm also curious: is it possible to take the existing server that we have, but just for propose, authenticate either through some sort of certificate or some other mechanism? So we only allow propose on that public port.
it would make sense to have them signed. That would be the right way to do it. Doing anything else isn't really
signed and authenticated on the server side, right?
if it's signed, it doesn't need to be authenticated.
Well, then whoever, anybody can sign, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. I mean, I think really that it's signed and authenticated per the, basically we're talking about exposing different functionality with the right permissions is really what we're talking about, right?
And I think it has to be whitelisted, ultimately. That's the only way to really.
The question is, do we want to build inside our node some kind of authentication or some kind of complex mechanism?
I think
it's
you
easier if
you have an expedient solution here, and we probably shouldn't second guess it. I mean, I think we probably should specify the right way to do it and work toward that. But this will solve the issue. This will work.
Yeah, because we want to create another methods, right? Not only propose. As I mentioned on the ticket, we want to expose some methods that you can ask Node for current state and how many deploys are currently in the queue and these kind of things. So you don't want to think about all of these things, how to protect, right? It's much easier to say, oh, this is a different port, it is closed for public, and you can for yourself create authentication or whatever you like.
No, but
this is why I'm
closed for public. I mean, essentially, we're still talking about who can do what, right? I mean, where should the who can do what be? If we don't want it to be on our node, should it be in the API itself somewhere? I mean, what's the right location for who can do what?
I don't think that we should think about who can do what. There's some admin API, for example, propose, and some API that will expose you internals of their node. And this is not a public information. So you can integrate some kind of user management inside our node to make some moves signed, for example, call and propose, to track who called propose, who did that, who did what. But to turn our node into, we need complete user management system inside our node, and this is not what it's intended to do. So we just need to have some API that is only for validator itself, protected, and the easiest way is just run on another port. So this can be closed because this is only for validator operator.
Yeah, so we want to have these two ports.
I'm prototyping to develop my API, and I'm calling it from the client. So it's also a development experience as you're prototyping with your own network, which is what I'm doing.
Yeah. So and I wanted to ask Arthur. So this need for call and propose is just for the development, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just.
I needed it for the development. Yeah, I need it for my development.
Okay, it's just proposal should never be opened to public. So this is just either this will be a matter of the protocol or the matter of validator operator.
Yeah, so Arthur, are you trying to use it during the time of development, or are you planning to deploy that in that same fashion so that your users can somehow invoke that with some degree of control?
Well, I mean, when I'm hoping to finish my UI at the end of the week, and we can talk about that. But I mean, as part of when you use the toolkit, the RChain toolkit, there's a specific prescription about how you do a deploy, and then how you do a propose, and how you listen to an endpoint. And it is a question of when you want to use that UI on a on a public network, what do you do about propose? So, like, how do you change your code so it no longer uses it, right? I mean, there's no ramp right now for going from from prototype to development, right? The same thing is for insert signed and insert the other one,
Arbitrary.
arbitrary. So right now I'm not I'm trying to develop the app, right? And it's those 2 points were sticky for me. Insert arbitrary, insert signed is sticky, and then the the propose, and just that cycle of how I'll change my code to not use propose. But I do need to use propose now, because otherwise I'd have to set up a server to call propose on my on our node. And it might just be unique to me because I'm not using testnet, right? But I'm using my
So
own.
I wonder, so you're using locally on your R node, locally?
I've created an R node network. Yeah, I have 2 nodes running, and it's not locally, it's running on Azure, right? I mean, I have a network deployed and running.
Mm-hmm.
And when I make changes to R node, I deploy it out to that network, and then I develop against it.
So basically what you can do is you can just run a cron job, which will run our node propose each 20 seconds, for example.
Right, yeah, right. I agree.
So this is how it's supposed to.
You're talking about someone like, this is my journey, right? I started off like deploying VMs for our node, and then getting everything to work there, and then working on Scala, and then getting into building Rholang contracts, and then working on TypeScript. And I'm just like, I have so many languages going on in Toolkit. Adding another step is just like, man.
Yeah, so this is a very valuable experience. So we need to figure out where is the tension.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. I'm using this opportunity. If you really need propose to create this another server, because we need it.
I added. I hacked propose. I have propose working on HTTP now. I hacked it. I just basically hacked the existing web server. After reading your videos, I just I hacked it and made it work.
But you added to existing web API, right?
Yes, I just took the existing web API and added constraints and made it work. Yeah.
Okay. So my goal was if someone is willing to create this web admin API, because we need it for other purposes, right? Propose is only one.
Yeah, I'm willing to help out there, but do we all agree that this is the right method? I mean, to have another server. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, we have the same situation with gRPC. So it's reasonable to just have another port which you can very easily close, and you have like a private API.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can show you what I did as well after we've gone through this.
Yeah, sure. If you like, you can do it now. Do it now.
So.
Because with this last finalized state, sorry.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. We will need additional operations that you can see what is going on with your node, right? It would be nice if you can see the progress or this kind of things.
Yeah. Can you see my screen now? Or no.
Not yet, at least not me.
Wow.
No, not yet.
Oh, that's weird.
But did you hit the share screen?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Try again. Wow. Yeah, I'm sharing.
Well, if you see the stop share, maybe if you stop sharing and reshare, that sometimes that could work.
I think, yes.
There we go.
Now we see.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the first thing is in this web API Scala. I'm just showing the old and the new. So in the web API Scala, I had to add a bunch of imports, pretty much because I had to create. My goal was to call create block, right? Just call create block from an API. So in order to create block, I had to add a few more imports. From there, I had to add metrics and the Monix task, and then this is not working too well. I don't seem to be able to move. Oh, there you go. Okay. So this is the definition of propose, just returns a string. Yes. I didn't take anything. Then in the web API, I had to add all the imports for the calling the blockchain, create block. And this would, I guess, be a separate web API implementation, but I would still need those constraints. This is the definition which just calls create block, right? So that's all. I assume that this works. I'm assuming that's just all I had to do was to call create block and return a flat map.
Yes, yes.
So that was it for the web API, and then for the node runtime, I had to let's see. So over here, I had to add these two implicits, and I have no idea what implicits are and why not, but I had to add these two implicits, and I added the block API lock because that seemed to be needed as well.
Implicits are just another parameters to the function, which can be resolved without specifying explicitly, and this is why they're called implicit. But this is just another parameters.
Yeah, so I didn't, but I just basically monkey see, monkey do. I was able to get this in, that in there. And I think that was pretty much it. I mean, I don't think there's any more changes to the file. So it was just those changes.
You update the web API routes, right? Just to add the binding.
Yeah, so in the routes, I had to add.
What is the URL? Yes.
Oh, this one is, this one was just, I just had to propose, right? So it's, this one. Just added this. Yeah, so I had to make 3 changes. I added the routes and then the node runtime in the web API. So this one over here would have to be a new web API file, I guess. And then this over here would have to create it. And then instead of adding to the existing web API, you would just subtract from clone this one and then subtract until you only had proposed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much what I did. But yeah, thanks a lot for Tomislav for the videos, because I had to watch the videos and read the links in order to understand what to do.
Yeah, this node runtime is not.
Help me move forward.
Oh, that's good. Now Arthur can teach others.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I asked to Will. Will can help with API stuff. He's very familiar with that. So I was thinking, 3 of us can split in parts what we are working on, and we can help, whoever is willing to do something. So. Very nice.
And what I also did is I had to hack I didn't use the RChain toolkit for this, right? But that would have to be updated there. Well, the RNode toolkit, sorry. I can't remember what it is.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is exactly what we need for this admin API. So we can start building like very clear interface what is public and what is you know, private or what is admin stuff. And we should have like the same thing for gRPC and for HTTP or WebSockets or whatever protocol we want to support. We can have the same API, and you know, it's much easier to use.
Yeah. So does everyone agree on that? Because I'd really like to talk about the other issue.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think we have Jim Whitescarver's approval and Arthur's approval, and Tomislav is the proposed. So does anybody oppose? I guess is the thing. If not, we'll go ahead and implement it that way. How does that sound?
That's good.
Cool.
Okay. Now the question is, of course, who is going to implement and who's right, Tomislav, your objective was to get some folks from the community to help out with that?
I mean, this is on our plate to do. So, you know.
I mean, I can help out. It's not a problem, but I just can't do it this week. I can only start next week.
Yeah, this is fine. Yeah, we are still working on the last finalized state. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, Arthur.
Yeah.
If you can help out with that, that'll be great.
Sure. So can I talk about the next part?
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
So the next, you know, the next sticky part is that, you know, I followed Raphael's great video on the ERC contract. And essentially what we're all doing right now is that, you know, we all have a contract and we're adding this, you know, insert arbitrary so that we basically get a name for our contracts. And then Raphael did it a little bit differently in that, you know, I use the name of the contract for a number of, for my API, right? And Raphael had like one named entry point. And then these were all called, you know, separate contracts, so they weren't necessarily exposed. But either way, what we all need to do is we need to at least have one name that we can use to use the contract, right? So if let me say, like, for example, this is my get auctions.
You
so
mean this is like
to look up. Yes, Tomislav?
I wanted to ask you. This is like a backend server, right?
Yes.
You have your code running on the blockchain, right?
Yeah. So this I deploy. So I deploy this using a let me see where this is the deploy app. So basically, I have some JavaScript which uses the the RChain toolkit to basically deploy this contract. Right, so you deploy this contract, and then what you do is that you have to look at the log in order to get the name that is created by insert arbitrary. So we write it out. So Raphael and I both do this, is that we deploy our contracts, and then we got to go to the log to get the URI for the contract, and then we use that contract in our UI. And in tests, what we do is that we deploy this, to the Docker R node, and then we have our test, which basically looks up the well, actually, you got to go and get the URI, and then you put it in here, for example. Then you look up the one that's locally, and then you can execute it, right? And then obviously, when you have this deployed against the network, you got to switch this out. Okay, so but basically your UI is using these types of contracts which have to look up a name and then call get auctions. And then in my auctions contracts, I need a name that I can then call get auctions on, right? So somewhere along the line, there's a get auctions down here somewhere. Close bidding.
And when you're deploying your contract the first time, when you're inserting into the registry, you can return the data, right? On your deploy ID, you can return the data and immediately get whatever you want from this deploy.
Yeah, I was confused by that.
So you
a
don't
little
need
bit
to
about
go
how
to the log.
Right. Yeah, I was
So
confused by that.
I can show you if.
I saw that in your code, where you basically set a port with the deploy ID, but I couldn't kind of get that to work. But that is if that's an alternative, then that's good. The only difference again is that you get, each time you change your contract in your deploy, you get a new ID. But it's not the same ID for the same contract. So you'd have to go and update, you know, all your UI would have to go and figure out what the new ID is every time you deploy a new contract. So that's the benefit of insert signed. You know, and I was able to, you know, get the, you know, I put it in Discord, but I was able to use that that file in Casper, in the Casper folder, to actually, you know, create the signature and the URI for insert signed. But when you use it, you know, if you open up registry locally, so if you open up registry and you deploy that to your local node, and then you use insert signed, the out URI is null. And then even if you deploy that to the network, the out URI is also null. So I'd like to use insert signed, so I have one ID for my contract, no matter how many times I deploy it. But I need, you know, the insert sign to work for my contracts, not just for the contracts that are in Casper.
Yeah, I'm not. I cannot help you right now with that. Yeah, because we only have this example in Scala code, and I'm not familiar with how, you know, why it's not working. And yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just talking about problems right now, right?
But
you know,
I can maybe suggest what can you do with instant arbitrary, right?
yeah.
If you have your code deployed the first time, so if you are deploying the second time, right, you will have the another address, right? You are deploying on the like on another place in the registry,
right?
But you can imagine that you can build your own mechanism to update some continuation inside your first code, right? You can first upload the wrapper, and then you can have some kind of mechanism that where you can say, oh, I have the authentication to update something inside this contract. So you will have the same registry address, but you will update something inside. Mm-hmm. This is like one way you can do the same thing. But this is like for purpose. Instant arbitrary means that no one can change this. You know that it will not change the contract on this channel. But yes, of course, that something inside can be changed, right? Right. Because you can update whatever you want.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, this is just a little. It's a little sticky when you're trying to dev and you're working on your UI and you're working on your contract, or you're working on the contract and the test. You keep on having to, you make a change to this, and then you have to get the URI, and then you go and update your test, right? So you kind of, it's just like a whole bunch of steps that, it'd be nice if it, they would all be gone if there was insert signed, but if there's no insert signed, it'd be nice just to not have to do all these cut and paste steps to, to iterate on your development.
Yeah. I'm not sure right now how can we do this better. Yeah, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about it.
As Tomislav said, you can do a full command line workflow with the deploy ID or listen for data name. And I should do it with deploy ID, but yeah, I still use listen for data name.
Yeah. Listen for data name you must use when you use deploy ID. This also
okay,
you're using
that's almost the same.
Yeah. So this is the way how when you issue request for exploratory deploy, then you want to get data from the blockchain, especially for data that is finalized. but when you create a deploy, maybe you don't want to wait for this data until it's finalized, right? Maybe you just want to say to see immediately, you know, after the block is created, what is the result, right? You're issuing rep transaction. You just want to see immediately if it is failed, because if it is failed, you know it will never succeed. So you don't need to wait to be finalized. But if everything is okay, then you can say, oh, I will wait until it's finalized, and then you know, I can say the transaction is successful. So this is why it's very important that you have a way when you create a deploy that you can check the node and get some data from this execution of a deploy.
Right.
So maybe I can show just briefly how this works. I will take the screen for a second. Arthur, can you?
Yeah, how do I do it?
It should be in the upper, in the center of the screen. In the top of the screen, in the center somewhere. If you put your mouse.
Okay, there you go. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm always struggling with that. This is my local. I have a local node. I need a local address, and I can do this deploy. And what does it mean is to, oh, I will do this on testnet. Oh, let me start the node.
Yeah. So Tomislav, if you can. Yeah, can we just look at this
changing
contract?
Which contract? This one?
So what you're looking at now, what happened to me is that when I called this contract, the deploy ID that I got back is a signature. And when I listen on that deploy ID, I was getting back the contract, not the result. So I was a little, that's why I didn't use this. I mean, I saw you use it, so I'd like to understand a little bit how this works.
Okay, so
when you deploy this, you know, what do you listen to?
I don't know what happened. Sometimes when I switch windows, yeah, something strange now. Oh my God. I cannot enter any text. Crazy. Okay, I will show the code.
You think there's a bug in that JavaScript or something?
No, in my window manager, something is with this Plasma window manager is not okay. When I try to switch windows, I get this bug. I need to restart my computer. So the workflow is to create a deploy, and you know what is the signature of this deploy. And this is a unique identifier for this deploy. And this row RChain deploy ID is just convenience channel where you can put something, and this will be available in this block where this deploy is proposed. So this is why you can ask with listen for data type name, you can ask the node, this validator, first you can ask, is this deploy in the block? So you are asking where if your deploy is proposed in the next block that the validator creates. So this fetching deploy, you can do it in interval and see when this deploy is available. When you have this deploy, you will get the block, and then you can inspect the block and see the result of this deploy. And when you see that your deploy is inside the block, you can issue another request for data type name. And what is the channel? So the channel is this deploy ID. So this is like a one-time, a quick way to get the data from a deploy. And this channel is like any other channel. You will get the Rholang AST. You can parse this data, and you will have whatever you send to this channel.
Yeah,
Is this make sense?
Yeah, kind of, because the deploy ID is actually the signature of the contract.
Yes, is the signature of this deploy. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So somewhere internally, the signature as a name.
Yes, this is like a special unforgeable name.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is why I'm creating this unforged deploy as a special name. And I'm giving this deploy ID as the data for this name. So when you request for this next block where your deploy is inside, Node can get you this data, whatever you sent inside your contract.
Yeah. So and just to confirm, right? I think the only reason why I never used your library is because it's gRPC, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, on this page, I'm using HTTP directly. So I created a simple wrapper to this Arnold HTTP. So I created a simple wrapper where I can just send JSON in the request.
Oh, super. Okay, I'll take another look at it. Thank you.
But for HTTP, we don't have the schema. For gRPC, we have protobuf schema, so we can generate some JavaScript. And for HTTP, for now, we don't have anything. So you need to build it yourself. This is why Rafael's library it's nice, because he created this. So like you have some kind of schema. And I'm not using any schema. I have just simple JavaScript.
Yeah. So the other thing that I did is I used your, that serialize method that you added to our node. I used that to return JSON because otherwise, because it was easier to use to parse than just returning the Rholang expression. If you use your serialize, then in the data property of the result, you get JSON without the expression language of Rholang, right? The expression syntax of Rholang. Yeah. You
mean when you get ST and then you need to parse this ST? Yeah. And then I'm doing this somewhere. I'm not. Let me see. I think it's part of web stuff. Oh, no, it's not here. It's the main, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think the message though is that we kind of, while we're developing the app, we bounce around the toolkit and this code. Yeah, we bounce around between this toolkit, the Thomas Love's library, Raphael's library, and then there's the what is it, the RChain API. I kind of had a brief look at that, but
yeah, this like for the API was I think the first one.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's not up to date.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is you bounce around and you take the least resistance route just to get going.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
for now, we are, you know.
In RChain Toolkit, there is also a method to convert AST to a JavaScript variable, but I think it does not handle tuples, only maps and arrays, and of course string and integers.
Nice.
So here I wanted to have like easy way to return whatever you like, right? So if you return one argument, you will have an array with one element. If you run a tuple, you will have an array with 3 elements. If you return in this polyadic style, when you have 3 arguments, which is not a tuple, right? It's like 3 arguments that you are returning. And this will, again, be translated to array with 3 elements. So whatever you write in your contract, you know, it will work, right? but you need to do this yourself, right? You need to specify how you're extracting this from this JSON object. And I'm not completely satisfied how this JSON serialize is working. I used whatever was the simplest thing and not to write everything manually, right? But I couldn't find a way to transfer this to more familiar JSON that you will expect, right? We have this expression, tuple expression par, and this kind of JSON that Web API is giving you. So
right, but
we can improve it.
Okay, so those are the two. I mean, I can share. Can I share again?
Oh yeah. Sorry, now I don't have a way to stop.
I think I've just shared. Oop.
Can you stop my sharing? Because I don't have a way to stop.
Yeah, until Tom's Law stops, you would not be able to share. The admin, I think Jim can probably knock out whoever.
Jim, can you? I don't have a way to stop.
I know. I was also looking for that. I found
Jim,
it on my second screen.
Jim, did you update your thing, your Zoom client and all that? Of course, the sharing was there well before, but maybe there is some changes. You should update your Zoom.
I will restart my PC.
Jim, you're on mute. Jim? Okay. Jim, you're on mute, though.
Come on.
Like I said, that's why nobody's hearing me.
Okay, now Arthur can share.
The room is set so anybody can take the screen share. Okay, just steal it anytime you want. Okay, and you know, if you take it at the, now if you take the screen share from me when I don't like it, I'll come over there and beat you up. But other than that, you can do it.
Yeah. So the other, you know, this is to trigger off what the result that you get back, that and then you're having to pass Rholang expressions. So what Thomas had done before is that he had implemented the serialize method and then also the HTTP method. And as in my scenario, I have a crypto server that gives me the you know, the zero knowledge bulletproof proofs. And I need to call that to give me that functionality, and I used HTTP. So I still think we need to talk about, you know, how we, you know, I heard Greg talk about FFI, but that's not really implemented yet. But basically, how do we call out to other services for things like zero knowledge proofs? So here I used the HTTP and the serialize. So you basically add it to the system process, and then it was added to the system processes. You know, these aren't big changes. So this one is So this is the HTTP contract, right? And this just allows me to call an HTTP server with JSON, and then with post and get. And then this is all that is implemented for serialize. And if you implement serialize like that, then what you can do in your return is that you can serialize the response, and then you won't have to pass Rholang expressions. You can just get JSON back. But so I think the serialize is probably not as important, but having a way to call out to an external server or a process, also just giving simple JSON out and back is something that's really really necessary. But as Tomislav has already in his presentation before spoken about, the difficulty of us coming up with a good pattern for doing an FFR or calling out to other services. Do you want to talk about that, Tomislav? Are you still online?
Yeah, I'm trying to connect from another machine because I don't see a screen. I cannot change anything on my screen.
Well, it's your code, so you know it.
Yeah. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But,
so what is the problem? The problem is if we integrate something that node is calling from Rholang, then this means that every validator needs to run these additional services, and we need to have like a good strategy how this should be done by validators, right? Because now just to run the node, you need to to know what are you doing. But if we have some Rust stuff, then you need to install Rust, and then you need to be able to check if this is working. And so I'm worried that this should be very good integrated with our node, so that when you run your node, you know that when you are the validator, you will execute whatever code that someone is creating, and other validators will also execute the same thing. So this is why I didn't immediately approve your PR, which is great, right? You created this another method, and you done this, excellent. But the problem is that what Greg mentioned. What in the future when we have many validators? What if some number of validators are not up to date, right? And someone is using this new method. So we will slash these validators with previous version of our node, because they will fail to execute the same thing. So this is why we need to think about RChip and how we want to push these changes, right? Because any of these changes, even if we just add an additional method, can be subject to some kind of maybe hard fork, right? If some number of validators say, I don't agree with this method, I will never agree with this method. So for now, I don't think that this is a problem, but we should just think how to deal with this in the future.
No, but I think the first thing for me is this: is that so we all recognize that we need a foreign function interface, right? But we don't have one. And the question is, what should that look like? I used this so that I could move forward, right? It was the least
so that we can hear Arthur. Would everybody please mute yourself so that we can hear Arthur?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I took this because I try to take the route that we use, for example, doing the existing crypto in RChain, but and that's still a valid route, but that route requires me to write a bridge between a Rust library and an R node, right? And I'm saying that I would like to not even do that. If Rust you know, if our node can extend its crypto API. I mean, you know, for example, I'm assuming that many contracts will need range proofs. So the question is, well, why doesn't our node include range proof APIs? And our node picks the library and make sure that it's always deployed, right? And then we wouldn't have to do anything. But the notion is this: is that, you know, at some point, the blockchain needs a zero knowledge security layer. You can't just make everything public all the time, right? I mean, I'm working on sealed bid auctions, and the whole point is that nobody can see the bids. So on a public blockchain, you got to have a security layer for that, right? So, you know, I'm more than happy to say that our node needs to have zero knowledge proofs as part of a security layer. And, you know, the most basic ones are arithmetic circuit evaluation and range proofs. So the other option is to actually bake that into our node and not have that as a foreign function interface. I mean, having a foreign function interface could be a separate discussion. Or we could not bake it into our node and then have just talk about the foreign function interface.
I'm not sure about Rust. Can Rust be compiled to native code somehow?
Well, I'm using Rust in two places. So I take a Rust library, and in my UI, I convert it to WebAssembly, and then I use it in the browser because I have to create, you know, commitments and range proofs in the browser, and then you send that to the node, and then the node needs to validate the range proof, right, to make sure that it's correct. So you need Rust, you know, you need this Rust library in different places, and it does get converted into, you know, a native library that you execute. Or it's converted into WebAssembly in the browser, right? But typically, you know, you need security in the browser and on the node. And libraries are just written in Rust. So the other thing that I need, for example, is I need to be able to sign data. When you open a bid, you actually, after you've committed and you close the auction, you open a bid, you're actually sending the actual values, but those values need to be encrypted with the public key of the auctioneer at the browser. So again, that's either a Rust library or it's a JavaScript library that then needs to go back to the server and validate it again. So you need security both in the browser and on the server.
Yeah, I don't know how I would implement like a Rust library into our node, but if there is like a way to implement a native library like written in C++ and call it from Scala, I could probably just integrate E3 libraries that can do homomorphic computation on encrypted values.
Yeah,
and it's almost Turing complete. So you can actually send encrypted data to publicly and let the Rholang code execute on encrypted data.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be kind of awesome to have, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. So the thing I'm trying you get to is that in order to use a external library today, you need to work with the R node, then you need to work with your external library, and you need to build a bridge. And I had to, you know, it's a JNR bridge, right? So you need three pieces, and the bridge and your external library needs to be hosted somewhere so that it can be downloaded as a package and included in the build system, right? So I'm saying it's a lot of work, right? I mean, to build a JNR library for these things is just, you know, it's not. Yeah. I mean, basically, if your library is not in Java, you have to build a bridge.
Yeah.
Because things are running in Scala, right?
So
the other alternative.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like here, this is the. I mean, I think I showed this before, but there's a. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I have some kind of echo. So is it better now?
You're coming through a little too soft, Tomislav.
Yeah, so you see this library here? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
this dependency is a library that RChain wrote. And this is a bridge between
about
the
that.
SecP 256 library and R-node, right? And this library is, it doesn't use SBT, it uses Maven, and it's hosted, right? So this one is actually hosted, on a package repository, and it gets downloaded. This is what you have to do, right?
This is created. So this is not example of how to do it. This is created only for this library that we have, Bouncy Castle, had some kind of problems. So they created this special library to overcome these problems. And why is on this special place, I'm not completely sure, but it's created for this purpose. And not as an example for how to extend the node.
Okay. But okay, so then
you're still right. We don't have
an FFI.
Nice way
Yeah.
to extend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and in this phase, I'm not sure that it was planned to create some kind of like the whole workflow how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying, I agree, but I'm not sure that in this phase we can somehow integrate this and as part of the R-node.
No, I just think we need to talk about what the right approach is. I don't think we even should be doing implementation yet.
Okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, it's just dialogue now. I mean, like I said, there's two things to it, right? Is that, obviously RChain has encryption as part of the Rholang interface. The question is, why stop where it is now? Why not add a range proof to RChain and to Rholang? Why not? I mean, you can do hashes and you can do signing, but you can't do a range proof. I mean, I think you should be able to do a range proof. It just needs the RChain community to adopt a library, just like we did here, right? This is the SecP library that you chose. You didn't have to, but you did. Pick a library for range proofs and for doing other encryption, and then just extend it. But that's one option, right? Not to do the FFI. It's just increase the capabilities of RChain.
Do we have candidate libraries for that discussion to say, here are the 2 or 3, let's pick one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using the Rust the Rust implementation of bulletproofs. That's a pretty good library, but that's one that I'm picking. It's apparently the fastest one as well.
Yeah,
but it have to be evaluated, right? I mean, people have to look at it. It's not.
Yeah,
I also chose. Sorry, I chose that one because it also gives me a compilation to WASM, and then I can use it in the browser. And if I didn't use the Rust library with the compilation to WASM, then that would be sticky as well, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you say in this way that we can just extend with different cryptographic algorithms, this totally makes sense, right? And we are using LMDB, for example, which is not the Scala code. LMDB is C code directly, and we have like Scala wrapper around that.
Right.
And we are using this in the R-node. So what you are saying is really the same thing, right? We can also have some kind of native code wrapper around that and expose this to Rholang. And this totally makes sense. Yeah.
So having it self-contained is nearly impossible, like everything in the R-node. Like it will have to be like some sort of external programs that will have to come with R-node in order to function, like on a different shard. Like, for example, a shard that can do all this cryptographic stuff, or a shard that can do like IPFS stuff.
Yeah, and now we don't have notion of sharding. I mean, we just have shard name, right? But how to specify which methods are exposed in which shard, and this is also something that we need to develop, and how we will manage this.
Cool.
Well,
So
I think if we find something to be fundamental for everybody, that could be part of the conversation now, right? I mean, in general, when we're talking about you need to go to a particular shard, it has to be some special purpose. For example, if there is a particular, let's say, financial industry standard or something that is needed, maybe we can say that needs to be in that shard. But stuff like crypto algorithms, of course, there you get into variety, like Arthur likes this one, Theo likes that one. How do we handle that? But if we say we at least provide X for doing certain functionality, I don't know, maybe we could just do it with the existing library dependencies mechanism, or is that not going to work?
So what Arthur said, there is no Java or Scala library to do this stuff. Because that would be the easiest way, right? Just to import the library and expose it in Rholang. But you cannot do this, right?
Did you say that, Arthur, or did you say that you just like the Rust one?
The Rust one is the fastest one. I mean, I think there's like a Java implementation, but it's not very fast. Most cryptography has been done in Rust now.
Yeah, and I mean, you as a validator, you can say, I will run Arnode with this library, and not this other one which is slower. So this is also something that
No, that's right. It really is about the RChain community, right? It's like how long, can you live without zero knowledge built in? If you can, then we need to talk about the FFI. Yeah, it's just kind of a way of figuring out what problem we solve, right?
I mean, you definitely changed my opinion about zero knowledge proof.
I mean, next week I'll give you a demo. Next week I'll give you a demo of what I have.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think if we can provide zero knowledge proof, even with a slower Java library, maybe that's an option for now. If we think integrating the Rust or other ones is complicated, then that may take more work, I think. But for basic stuff that people want to use, maybe we can use the current mechanism to basically say, okay, here is one more library if you want to do X, sort of a thing.
Well, I haven't been keeping track of Jim's voting contract, but is there no additional requirements for cryptology in the voting DApp other than what we already have in Arnode?
Jim, you're muted.
I'm sorry, my mind is still elsewhere.
So, Jim, in the voting app, are you finding that you don't have cryptology requirements that that Rholang doesn't give you?
No, I think the signature. I mean, in the voting app, we use fake private keys, but clearly now today we have it can be fixed to use signatures and public key identities, which is, was basically using Discord identities in the prototype. Where the private key was derived from the thing, and it was it was exposed. But I see no reason why. I think we need to rebuild the Dan's Locker app. We need to update it so that it uses proper signatures. And once we have the locker, the data locker, everybody has a place for their private stuff. We have the ability to exchange capabilities, and we need that in order to build coordination and well, everything. You know, it enables identity.
Yeah, so for example, I don't think we have Schnorr signatures in our node right now, and the example is that the SPK, that elliptic curve was provided by NIST, and it's not always considered unexploitable, even though we don't know that that's the case. So, that we have many of these examples where we need to basically increase the cryptology footprint of.
I haven't evaluated it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, we have the capability, but
okay,
how good it is, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So to be continued.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you, Arthur.
Okay.
So we're about 15 minutes over the hour. Maybe this would be a good place for us to stop. Unless, does anyone have any final thoughts before we close up for the day? Okay. Well, this was another great session. So, and we had a great turnout today as well. So, these education sessions, I think, are very valuable, and people are also value the recordings that we're posting on YouTube. So we certainly want to keep these going. So perhaps, Arthur, as you said earlier, next week, you feel pretty sure you might be able to do a little demonstration of your work to date. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put that on the agenda for next week. So we have that to look forward to. Very good. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending.
Steve,
and
Steve,
yeah, go ahead.
I wonder, do we have an idea of how many hits we're getting on the YouTube videos on this?
That's, well, you can go and look at the views, the view count. So, and I just in discussions with people, like Arthur, he had mentioned earlier that he watched Raphael's earlier video.
No, the reason I'm asking that question is perhaps it would be beneficial for the community, for the communications group.
Mm-hmm. A KPI, a metric for quantifying how many people are viewing the videos. Yeah.
I think he's saying promoting the videos so that people do watch them.
Oh, okay.
Is that right?
Well, yeah.
No, the thing is that what I found with most of the collab videos is they don't get a lot of views, but for even if one person got something important out of the video, it was worthwhile. Yeah. Okay, and in many cases that's been the case. Very few people have watched it, but people have come back and said, again and again, people have watched some random video, and that has brought them on board.
Exactly. I think Rao had dropped off due to technical reasons. So in any case, very good. So thank you, everyone. And Rao just came back. Rao, did you?
Yeah, it seems like I lost my internet connection briefly, but
yeah, go ahead.
So I was suggesting that maybe we take on a task in the communications group to either tag and or otherwise disseminate these videos so that they show up even though somebody's not specifically looking for RChain, but if they're looking for Scala or if they're looking for dApp development or more generic searches or things like that. That's what I would recommend. So that would expand the group of people that are exposed to what we're doing.
That's a good point. Using search engine optimization, proper tagging. So I plan on attending the communications session today, so I'll bring that up on how to leverage these education videos and properly tag them to promote them. So okay,
yeah,
yeah,
to
point
expand,
taken.
basically to expand the developer ecosystem.
Yeah.
The other thing that we can do, and I guess a number of people here have admin capabilities on the YouTube channel, so they can tag them. If people want to participate, they don't have those permissions, they can ask one of us to get those permissions to do that. The other very valuable thing we can do, if there's something good in a video that you want to point out, if you put in the minute and the minute and put in the time into the description of the video, it links it so that somebody can come in and click on the time, and it's automatically linked to that place in the video.
Good to know.
So that if we know that some piece of information or some subject is covered at a certain minute,
Right.
If we stop and put that in the description, we're doing a service for people down the road.
Yeah.
And
this is a great idea.
For searches, because we're adding in the description details as well.
Yeah. And maybe we can have.
Go ahead, Tanslav.
Maybe we can have some kind of default description that says something about RChain and the basic information that we can put in every video.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the default description could be general tags like advanced Scala and dApp development, this, that, and everything else could be part of that default description, so that everything essentially gets tagged with all of that, as well as some contextual reference. The other thing, of course, we could all do is put a lot of likes on these videos, so that I don't know what impact that has, but I have not looked into YouTube marketing, but I guess I need to probably spend a little bit of time looking into that.
Yeah, these are all great points to be made, and I'll make an effort to bring these up as well during the communications meeting later today.
I think what will be even more beneficial is to have some sort of videos that kind of explain how to transition from Solidity to Rholang, because there are many dApp developers that use Solidity right now. So having those tutorials that kind of help with transition is gonna be more popular, among dApp developers.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Now, I don't know if we have any Solidity. Do we have people that are equally facile in both Solidity and Rholang, or is that something we need to kind of develop? Maybe that's something we should take on sort of as a project. I mean, it may almost be worth its own sessions, series of sessions to say, okay, let's take this. It sounds like definitely a worthwhile project to me. We'll think more.
Pick on the weaknesses of Solidity as well. I mean, it really is painful working in Solidity. The biggest problem I had was you could only have primitives as input to your methods, and then you had like a stack depth of 15 or something. So it really was limited, and that's what kind of pushed me away from that and onto RChain.
So let me ask who in this group has Solidity experience?
I work with Solidity a bit, but I'm not sure if I can help with actual transition, because I'm transitioning myself right now. But yeah.
Right. How about you, Arthur?
No, I only had a bad experience and left.
So no, but actually, why you had bad experience and how that was resolved in Rholang itself could be a nice video, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
You can say why Rholang for Solidity developers, and then just do a video on that as to your experience.
I'm not
I was building. I was building a betting platform on Ethereum, and it's actual sports betting platform that was kind of, it became more complex over time. And the more complex your Solidity code becomes, the more you have to split the code into libraries, and it was such a pain to do.
Theo,
you should really,
Theo, are you using
I think
VS
each of
Code
you should
or
really
the
speak to
browser?
your experience. Make a video. Go ahead. Sorry, Arthur.
Yeah, sorry, Theo, are you using the browser or using VS Code? Has he gone?
Yeah, Theo's there. Question for Theo: were you using your browser or were you using VS Code? Is that?
Yes.
For calling Solidity?
Yeah.
No, I was using a framework IDE that was built on top of Cloud9 platform.
Okay.
It had Solidity debugging built in and everything like that, so it was pretty awesome to code in.
Oh, okay.
But the project got abandoned, unfortunately.
Okay.
Like I can send you the link if you want to.
Oh no.
I mean, you can put the links in the Discord. I would like to see.
Yeah. Also, I haven't played with Cloud9 lately. Are there other tools? Because whatever I used there, I found generally limiting. Are there other tools now much better on Cloud9 for any language?
Is that a question for Theo or who
For
uses
anybody that's
Cloud9?
In my case, it was nice that it came with everything. It came with the debugger, with the actual like test network. So you just push a button, you can debug your Solidity code right away.
And I see. So
yeah.
I guess that's another thing we should think about. I mean, is there something we can enable on Cloud9 for developers, right?
And what exactly is Cloud9? I'm not quite clear on what it is.
It's an online collaborative code development platform.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, yeah, that's certainly another discussion topic, and perhaps we can pick that up in Discord. Is sort of do a shout out to see who's familiar with Cloud9 and who's actually using it, and perhaps that might be another community tool. So now I'm curious. I'll go to the website and check it out. So yeah, I'll try to remember to have it bring the discussion. So that I guess the appropriate channel would be in the development channel to kind of raise that topic. Does that sound right? Or education?
Yeah, I'm okay with either one.
Either one.
Maybe education.
Education for now. Okay, since that's kind of where we. Okay, Cloud9. All right.
I can send you the link to some of what I found. I'm gonna send it on Discord as well.
Thanks, Theo.
Yeah,
so this is how it looks like. So you basically have debugging built in. You can actually run web dapps right inside the thing. So it's like a one-stop solution for making dapps. So it would be nice to have something like this for RChain as well at some point.
And where are the nodes running the blockchain? Are they also in the cloud?
It comes with a free like virtual machine, so it's running an Ethereum testnet inside there.
Oh, so you have your own network, right? Just for you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, we can create some kind of.
I'm not sure why we stopped using Cloud9. I mean, for for like JavaScript development, there's a lot of alternatives. I'm trying to think of, I guess Cloud9 gives you pretty much a full Linux environment, but I think it seems like there were limitations that
It might have improved lately, but I guess the way to think about this is to say, okay, where are the JavaScript developer communities, and what tools are they using, and then see how we can plug, how we can enable them to into the, without them having to switch the environments they're using. What can we do so they can get going from there? Something along those lines.
There is a Docker container for this, so you can actually spin it up locally and see how it works. So maybe we can take this and kind of extend it, or kind of replace with our own. I'm gonna send you the link, so you can actually like install it and see how it how everything is set up. So it's probably a good starting point for us. I don't know, maybe there are other IDEs that will be more beneficial, like maybe directly in Visual Studio, or like web-based alternatives for that. I heard there was like a Visual Studio that's running on web. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically having Visual Studio that's running on the cloud. If I find the link, I'm gonna send it.
Yeah.
But yeah, exploring those things to make development easier for new developers, that's something we can look at.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So I put those links in the log for next week. So we can discuss those next week as well. So, okay. Any other final thoughts?
I was just going to say, yeah, these are kind of basically community projects that community can take on with a little bit of help from the developer, with the development group, so that it's basically a matter of, generally speaking, packaging.
Okay.
But we can see.
Yeah.
What can be enabled.
Yeah, it's good that we're having these types of discussions, and it's from the perspective of community outreach, how to bring more, how can our RChain developer ecosystem bring in more developers. So these discussions go a long way towards working towards achieving those goals. So this is all productive. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time and attention, and look forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. See ya. Bye.